We are Saints in the South, your source for gospel growth and good times. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Saints in the South, episode 229.
Niner.
Yep.
229. So go ahead and invite everyone out there to hit your subscribe buttons and notification bell. Hit the share button as well. Share this with friends and family. We appreciate it very much, for sure. Going to give a quick shout out to one of our listeners, Mr. Emery Marquette. He came through for us on the topic of the anti-Nephi Lehis and the name. So he ended up sharing a link from Scripture Central from their channel. It basically says in the Book of Mormon, a group of the Lamanites who converted to Christianity took the name of anti-Nephi Lehis as a declaration of their faith and allegiance to the Nephites. The name may have come from the Egyptian adjective net, which means who of or making. It could also be a translation of the Egyptian relative marker, which means which is or that which is. And then another possibility is the name may also have been chosen by the newly formed people's king who renamed his son Anti-Nephi Lehi. The king's people and fellow converts then took their name, or the king's name. So
that's the part I didn't know all of that. That was the part I was remembering, and there was a verse that mentions that he named his son that, and then the people kind of that he became the new king, and then the people kind of went by his name. So
that's right. So appreciate that very much. Appreciate our listeners picking us up and filling in the gaps that we leave every week here.
Well, I think I'm going to change my name to Anti-Joe Jackson McKinney.
Hey, let us know when you got it done, and we'll share that with everybody. Make sure we introduce you that way. Change you from Rogue Bishop to Anti-Jackson Joe.
Kenny.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, hey, so one of our new segments on here is what are the prophets saying?
Well, they're saying a lot.
A ton.
We'll just leave it at that.
No, so what do we need to pay attention to?
All of it. So we sustain, just as a reminder, 15 brethren as prophets, seers, and revelators. We have one that is the president of the church, but all 15 men are prophets, seers, and revelators. So when we go to see, well, what have they said recently, like in the past 6 months, there's a ton, there's a lot. So it was hard to try to pick out exactly which one to talk about, because we're not going to talk about all of it. We're just going to talk about one. And so I really struggled with this, trying to figure out which one to talk about, because there's words from, hey, this is what we need to do a little bit better, to, hey, this is what we're already doing well at, to, hey, let's show love for everybody, and hey, get off your high horse and you better stop being an apostate, and this is how to check to see if you are. So it was a whole gambit of different things, because we need all of it, right? Because we always need to keep ourselves in check, because we can go too far one way or the other, as we've discussed earlier. But the one I chose was from a General Conference leadership meeting in April 2024. And all these things can be found in the General Handbook of the Church. They have these leadership meetings that you can go in, very short messages that we can now have the privilege of reading. But this one was from Elder Uchtdorf, talking about alignment with Heavenly Father's plan of salvation and exaltation helps people be temple ready. Basically, the words that he was talking about is, when you go to the temple, don't look at it as, especially if you've already gone through for your own endowments for the first time, and now you're going back again to take those that have deceased, right, through the temple so that they can receive their endowments. But basically he was saying, don't look at this as an event that you're watching. Look at this as something that you are actually participating in, that you are actually Adam, or that you are actually Eve, and that you are a participant, not a spectator. And you're going through all this. And his reminding us of seeing our temple covenants as joyful blessings, not just responsibilities. And then helping members see Jesus Christ in the plan and in the temple. And it talks about how that it emphasizes godly power that are available in the temple to help overcome fear and doubt and things like that. And just to always seek Jesus Christ and when you're in the temple, and to not just say, oh, it's a beautiful place and isn't this so beautiful, but the beautiful ordinances themselves and the covenants that you're making, and the veil representing Christ himself. And to me, that this goes hand in hand with the biggest change of all, at least for us in this generation. And that's including a lot of those covenants, the actual covenants that we make in the general handbook, and being able to talk more openly about what goes on in the temple and the veil, etc. And all that is talked about. It's beautiful and it's wonderful. And it helps us to understand more the significance of going through the temple, especially as participants rather than spectators.
Yeah, I love that. I know that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's one of the adjustments.
That's a good word right there. That's Elder Bednar would be happy with you, with your word choice.
Thank you. Thank you very much. But the emphasis of putting yourself in Adam's place, right? You are Adam, right? Or
you are Adam.
You are Adam during this during this ceremony. Not literally, but you are Adam going through this, right? So you are Michael, you are Jackson, you are Joe. It is you going through this temple ceremony, and you're not just attending and watching something, just like you say. I really love that. Am I accurate in that emphasis is one of the adjustments?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I know members. I know there are members out there that love the gospel, love the restoration, but struggle with the temple ceremony and everything.
Which is kind of. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, this might lead into what you're about to say, but I was just going to check. Are there any suggestions if someone is struggling with going to the temple and participating in the temple ceremony? How do you overcome that?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because that was one of the other things that I thought about bringing up, but I'm going to bring it up now.
All right.
So, staying within the General Conference leadership meeting for April 2024, Dallin H. Oaks talks about patterns of personal apostasy. So, just being on the lookout for that type of thing. And he says, let's see, what's one of the things that he says here?
This will tie in later.
Here it is.
Come follow
he
me.
says, focusing on past he quoted, what he did was he quoted Spencer W. Kimball. He said, focusing on past prophets rather than living. And then here's the quote. They who garnish the sepulchres of the dead prophets begin now by stoning the living ones. They return to the pronouncements of the dead leaders and interpret them to be incompatible with present programs, contending that current religious leaders are not in harmony with the latest discoveries of science or other scholarship or political correctness or those words of past prophets. So I think the thing that we need to remember the most is President Oaks' words here is that this is a living church. As we are ready for it, and as we're ready to receive it, and as we're ready to live it, we're going to receive more and more and more pure revelation, right? So we receive revelation, like let's say that this is how we receive it. And then as we're ready for it, our eyes are opened a little bit more. And then our eyes are opened a little bit more. And it expands upon previous revelation to where we see a bigger picture rather than something like this. We see, okay, now then we understand the revelation in a bigger context. And as we sustain these prophets, seers, and revelators, and remember that this is a living church, which means that we're going to continue to receive and embrace revelation, which is one of the articles of faith, right? That if you keep that in mind and you're open to the Spirit will testify to you that these adjustments are true, and that as we receive new revelation, that it's true. So, follow the living church, follow the living brethren, follow the living prophets, seers, and revelators, and you won't go wrong.
Yeah. All right, Joe, what you got on church news?
Church news. Actually, just the other day, within the past couple of weeks, it's kind of a cool little thing. We have a Sister Joanna Heigl, who became only the 4th ever Rear Admiral female. She's a member of the church, and she's promoted in the Coast Guard. That's where she's been serving, and actually met and taught her future husband. They were married in the temple. He joined the church. They were married in the temple. They've got several kids. Seems like the whole family basically serves in the Coast Guard. But it's pretty cool little story. It talks about how she was really conflicted at the time. Her grades weren't doing so great in the Coast Guard early on, so she was considering dropping out and going and serving a mission, and she prayed about it, and lo and behold, her grades improved, so she stuck with it. And that's soon thereafter is when she met her future husband, and kind of talked to him about the gospel, and did a little missionary work on her own, and brought him into the faith, and here we are. That's pretty neat.
That's pretty impressive right there. And you can find this in church news, and we'll try and share this in the link. Pretty exciting stuff there.
I was trying to remember the Coast Guard motto. Always ready. Semper paratus.
Always ready. I like it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty cool right there. So that's
yep.
Did you say that's pretty rare?
Yeah, it's only the 4th time ever a female has been promoted to the rank of Rear Admiral. And she'll be kind of in charge of about 6,000 Coast Guard members and their families, like making sure that they're doing their job and making sure they got what they need and to do their job. So it's pretty neat.
Pretty awesome.
Yep. So I thought that was pretty cool. Good role model. Nice achievement. Something worth talking about.
Absolutely.
Now, do you have a cool little intro for national news? Yeah, just a quick one. I sent you a link. It's just, it blows my mind. Literally, when I read some of these things, I'm like, oh, that's got to be satire, or that's got to be, just somebody making fun of the situation. But it's actual real news. The Sacramento Bee, the Sacramento, California, the city attorney, they had sent a warning to Target, the Target company, like a competitor with Walmart, because Target was calling the police too much because they were being looted too much. And so the city attorney said, you're becoming a nuisance by calling the police so much. And so they were threatening them with legal action on calling the police too much for these crimes. And so it's kind of blown up in their face a bit, because the chief of police or whatever, the state representative for the police or whatever, was saying that sounds crazy to him, because if someone's committing an actual crime, you're never going to be a nuisance by reporting that crime. But just kind of a sign of the insane times we live in, that siding with people doing wrong and saying, just keep it quiet, even though laws are being broken, and just unbelievable, in my opinion. What you think, Rogue Bishop?
I have no comment.
His brain was hurting. I could see it.
I could see it. Yeah, smoke was boiling out.
It's an example of good becoming evil and evil becoming good.
Yeah,
One of those prophecies there.
yeah. I mean, and it's tough. You think about raising your family in a situation like that. I don't know, man. Like if you're in the store and this group of people just kind of mobs their way in, grabs what they want and mobs their way out, and police are called. I mean, that's already a crazy enough, scary enough situation. And then to find out your city attorney is threatening the company that called the police.
Yes.
Because
we're going to fine you.
Yeah. Like
you only get to call the police 20 times. That's it. Once you go to 21, then you're going to get a fine. Because
we don't want to appear bad.
Yeah, and I'm not going to name the retail store just to protect them. No, and I mean that in all seriousness. But and I know this firsthand. So the employees have been told when they catch someone stealing, not to approach them, not to touch them, to just let them go, because of all the lawsuits and counter lawsuits and everything that has happened. And so we see those prices reflected to cover. So we end up paying for it anyway, because to cover that loss. In fact, there was 2 incidents very recently where the employees said, no, I can't. I can't just watch this go by, and lost their jobs because they tried to prevent the theft.
And some of them have lost their jobs or been in trouble for even calling the police, like not even tackling the person, but just reporting it. And again, I think it's coming down to an image thing. They don't want to appear bad. They don't want to, I don't know. They're trying to balance some scoreboard somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yep, I agree. Yep, nuttier than the outhouse.
But I will say this.
Festival.
I tell you, I will say this, because you did make a comment that I thought about even back when I was a young parent, because I thought the world was in chaos back then. Not even being able to compare it to what it is now. But as a young parent, I thought, what am I really doing the right thing by bringing these little souls so innocent into this wicked, wicked world? And I was reminded by prophets, seers, and revelators that these little souls were prepared for this time. They knew what was going to happen. They were prepared, and they were willing and ready to come because they wanted to be defenders of the faith. Now, when they get here, there's still temptations and agency, and some people still lose their way. But I would say to all parents today, don't be afraid, and don't be overly concerned about bringing these little spirits into the world, because they're needed. They're desperately needed. And the best that you can do is train them up in the ways of the Lord, and they'll depart not far from them.
Yep, I agree. That's how I look at it with my kids. Is just, the situation of the world, and what the world needs. It needs strong individuals to be able to stand up for what's right. And it was, I sent you guys that quote not too long ago. I think it was G.K. Chesterton about fairy tales don't exist to tell kids that dragons are real. They already know that. Fairy tales exist to tell children dragons can be killed.
Right.
Something along those lines. Yeah, it was really cool.
Well, and look at all the adjustments that we've experienced in the church, because no longer are we training future leaders of the church. When we talk about the rising generation, they're already leaders, right? Yeah. They're looked at as leaders already. They're given the animosity. I always get that word messed up. Anyway, I can't think. It's an A word. It's not animosity. It's the ability to do what they feel like they need to do.
Authority?
No. I'll think of it later.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of what it is.
Oh yeah,
amnesia.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yes, what it is. Amnesia.
They're given the amnesia. No, I'm sure Emery will help me out with this word. But anyway, they're given the ability to lead now and to be leaders now, because that's what we need. Is we need them as leaders right now, not in the future, but right now. And I think that's so they're taught to lead. They're taught to give lessons. They're taught to publicly speak. They're taught. I mean, just so many different things, because that helps prepare them for what they need to be right now. Not in the future, right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going right in line with the one more quick segment here. I've got it's parenting ops.
Oh yeah.
My wife made me a shirt a few years ago for Father's Day, and you've got the video game Call of Duty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I come across the front of the shirt, it says Call of Daddy, and it's got a military guy, and it's got parenting ops. Right. So I think we, all of us have, and think
trademark
about
infringement. I like it.
Yeah. But the whole parenting situation, and as much as we think about it, and this is kind of another shout out to
autonomy.
There you go.
Rogue Bishop's a little slow. Okay, sorry, Jackson. Keep going.
Right.
So, I had to say it real quick before I forgot it.
Yeah, no problem.
Strike while the iron's hot. Yeah.
So concerning parenting ops, Brother Emery Marquette bore his testimony this past Sunday, and he talked about his children going to FSY, and he bore really powerful testimony, and got pretty emotional about his daughter Logan coming back, and how much just a spiritual high and everything that she was on. And when she walked through the door, she was crying, and she was saying that I want to go back. And he said, as a father, his immediate reaction is, well, why do you not want to be here at the house with your family? So he kind of took offense to that comment from his daughter. And of course that was his first natural reaction, but obviously he realizes and knows that, so he thought, he says, what am I doing wrong?
Right.
That was his thought. What am I doing wrong that she doesn't want to be here at the house? And, so I was talking to him afterwards and thought of a good bit about that. And, I shared with him, said, actually, I understand where he's coming from completely, because we always think about, what can I do better as a father, or as a mother? And if we are raising our children to where they want to go to FSY, they want to have those spiritual experiences, then we are doing a lot right. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
If we're raising our children and they become of age and they're not wanting to stay at the house all the time, we're doing something right. So we raise our children to eventually become adults and going out on their own, and being able to survive spiritually. So my thought to him is that he's doing a lot right, and everything. So.
Yeah, it reminds me, and I can't remember where I read this at, but it was talking about
autonomy.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. Anatomy. So it was talking about a past president of the temple, and he said that they were talking about how when people would go and have that experience, there'd be like at the temple experience, and they were leaving the temple, they'd be like, well, I guess going back to the real world. And that statement really bothered him so much that he prayed and prayed on it, and finally said he would stop people and say, no, you're not. You're leaving the real world. You're going into a temporary world that's only going to last for so long. So you're going back to the temporary world. You're not going back to the reality. You're going back. You're leaving reality. And that's the whole point too, because no matter how nice we can make it here, when we have a glimpse of home with Heavenly Father, Heavenly Mother, we'll yearn to get there. We yearn to go back, right? So, you know, I'm just saying. So if you look at the big scheme of things, I think, Jackson, what you were talking about and what Emery was going through is exactly right. We're doing a lot right if our children, you know, want those spiritual things and they want them more often.
Right.
That means that we're doing a whole lot right. Yeah. It would be worse if they're like, I never want to go back again. I hated that experience. I just want to stay home. At first you might think, yeah, I'm doing a great job. They want to stay home. But the reality is, no, you want those kids to find the security of being independent, the security of going out on their own, the security of making their own choices, the security of facing things on their own, and maybe run back for some help now and then, but really being independent people.
Right.
Right on.
Well, very good. So let's jump into some Come Follow Me this week.
Let's do that.
Oh, yeah.
We are in Alma, chapters 30 to 31, the virtue of the Word of God. The accounts in Alma, chapters 30 to 31, clearly demonstrate the power of words for evil and for good. The flattering and great swelling words of a false teacher named Korihor threatened to bring many souls down to destruction. Similarly, the teachings of a Nephite dissenter named Zoram led a whole group of people to fall into great errors and pervert the ways of the Lord. In contrast, Alma had unwavering faith that the Word of God would have a more powerful effect upon the minds of the people than the sword or anything else. Alma's words expressed eternal truth and drew upon the powers of Jesus Christ to silence Korihor, and they invited his blessing on those who went with him to bring the Zoramites back to the truth. These are valuable examples for followers of Christ today when false messages are common. We can find truth by trusting, as Alma did, the virtue of the Word of God. Yet to raise the examples there that we can really apply to our day. The flattering words. It can be very, very eloquent to pull us away.
Yeah, and it's you know, when and as someone that's just reading the scriptures and you're reading the stories, you're like, I don't understand. How can these people they had everything? How can they just so easily fall back into this or turn their backs or believe these ridiculous flattering words? You know, and you get to the point where you're thinking, I just don't understand, man, that would never happen to me. And then you look all around you and then sometimes even ourselves will find ourselves like, oh, wait a minute, how did I get to this point?
Yeah.
You know what? How did I forget these covenants that I've made? What's going on? You know, so it's easy to look at that and judge. But the other thing that I thought was amazing was, you know, when we always watch these, well, maybe not all of us, when I watch these super movies, these, you know, hero movies, Marvel, DC Comics, whatever, and you always have this person that rises up and they're just like amazing, right? With all these gifts and powers and strengths and stuff. You always have someone anti that is pretty comparable to the same.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of truth to that, because when you look at a Captain Moroni, look at how fierce and strong his adversary was. Mm-hmm. And then once that adversary was killed and his brother took over, it was just as fierce. And then so when you always have someone like Korihor or these others, then you'll have an Alma that is just as strong on the good side. You know, so it's, I don't know, it's like for every Goliath, you'll have a Daniel. I mean, a David. And for every David, you're going to have a Goliath. It just goes both ways.
At least opposition in all things, right?
At least that's where we're at now. And the stronger the opposition, the stronger the truth. Or the stronger the truth, the stronger the opposition is going to be. You know, that's what we're dealing with right now in our temporary world. We know that all that's going to go away someday, but I think that the only reason I bring that up is because, one, I think it's curious, but two, I think it helps us to not lose heart when we see the continuing evil getting stronger and stronger, we know that the continuing truth is going to get stronger and stronger at the same time.
Yep. I think it goes to your comments earlier about raising kids in this crazy world and stuff. And as bad as the world is getting, that's my kind of takeaway, is that these kids got to be pretty awesome, pretty special spirits to be able to deal with this world, and exactly in that light, that with the strength of evil, or the prevalence of evil, there's going to be a counter to that. There's going to be people equal to the task and ready to serve,
Yeah. There's the scripture opposition in all things. And I think
that's what I think whenever I work on cars.
Yeah.
Humble you.
For sure.
What's your guys' thought about Alma 30 when it talks about how the adversary doesn't support his followers? He doesn't support his children.
That was fascinating.
Yep.
That stood out to me this go around too. I mean, I know I've read it, obviously, many times, but that particularly did stand out to me this go around, because I see so many people now that seem to be going along with things that either makes them feel good or makes them feel included or whatever. And I just keep shaking my head going, man, you're going to pay for it later, or you're going to hit a dead end down the road. And I thought about that when I hit that verse. I was like, oh man, that's good advice. Good information there.
Yeah. I mean, Satan has his plan, and his plan is to make everybody just as many people as miserable as he is.
And you're expendable in his plan. That was the takeaway.
Exactly. He goes to the next person that's willing that he can take as far as he can take. And as soon as they're no good to him anymore, he's going to somebody else.
Yeah. And it just leaves them to hang,
that's right.
Yeah. And I know I've made this point before, but Jackson, just to piggyback on your thought where, his plan is to make us all miserable. To me, his plan's worse than that. And that's just my take. It's worse than that. Not only miserable, but his plan is that no one makes it back home. He's like, well, if I can't be the savior, if you didn't pick me, then no one's coming back home. I mean, what a jerk. Yeah. Seriously, who wants a brother like that? I mean, just punch him in the face if he had a face, right? But he doesn't have a body, so but I'm just saying.
Use your autonomy how you want.
And that's the antithesis of a sore loser, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I got a quick, if you want, pattern, a six-step pattern. I thought this is thanks to this pattern brought up by Ben Wilcox. I came across this, and I think he's pretty astute on this. He pointed out 6 steps of faith shaking or faith separation, pattern by Korihor here.
Mm-hmm.
And then 6 steps, keeping things in balance, and all things having an opposition. 6 steps to strengthening faith. So number 1 was mocking. So Korihor, if you notice, many times is talking about the foolishness and kind of just calling them stupid, cotton-headed ninny muggins or whatever. But just
I love
generally mocking tone, right? And so I think that's kind of starting this little sparring with your faith. And then he antiquates them. He separates by age or time, temporally separates them from their faith by saying that your traditions, these aged people, your leaders are too old, they're out of touch. How could they know the things going on today? So he's it's still mocking, but in a different way. And it is driving this wedge between you and your belief, you and your faith, because spatially or time-wise, it can't apply to now. you got to be, more progressively minded and things like that, right? So he kind of appeals to that. He then relates that your obedience and your rules are actually chains. It's bondage, right? So it's kind of a division by responsibility or desire, depending on which way you want to look at that, by saying whatever it is you desire, you should have. And so this is a burden to you. This is a chain for you. Or by responsibility, to say that your responsibilities are actually chains or whatever. But that's another tool for division, dividing you from your faith. And then he divides along power lines. He starts manipulating this idea that the people that are in charge, the power, the authority structure of your church is actually rulers over you. They think they're better than you. They think you're inadequate. They think you're less than, anything like that. So it's a division along power lines, or presumed power or authority lines. And then he slides in a lie. And how often do we see that? We've already mentioned a few instances of that, to where there's kind of opinion, and then all of a sudden there's a flat out lie that gets slipped in there, right? And I think he brings this up when he says that Alma is doing this for his own profit. He's trying to make money, and Alma's like, "What?"
When it was actually him that was doing it for money.
Correct. And it's a flat out lie. And many times, as you point out, Michael, it's projection. It's him calling out exactly what he's doing. But
we see that.
And then that's right. We see all these today, which I thought it was pretty astute observation here. And then the last of the 6 was that he tries to undercut the doctrine or poison the well. So it's kind of, I think of it like a fight or boxing. I've got something on my, like a hair or something. Anyway, I think of it like a fight or a boxing match, where they kind of put you on your heels and then poison the well, right? Saying that no one could know the future. No one could know these things that your leaders are telling you, that type of thing. So they're trying to plant this seed. Alma talks a little bit later on about seeds and things like that. They're trying to plant a seed that's a bad seed, right? And then let you run with it. So that's kind of the pattern. And I think we see a lot of that today. And now the 6 steps to faith strengthening is number 1, what we see these different examples of what happened to Korihor, right? In some of these areas, he was allowed in, and they say, well, everyone can have their opinion, so he's not really breaking laws by stating his opinion. And then meanwhile, the whole society is getting pulled away. And then he goes to other towns, and what do? They tie him up and throw him out, right off the bat. Like, we ain't taking it. Get out. You want to go preach your stuff, go preach to somebody else. And then in this other town, they bring him, to Alma to have this conversation. And so the lesson is to just walk away or kick them out. Like there are bona fide questions being asked by people, and you can have a discussion that brings in the spirit and all of that. But there are a lot who just want to pick a fight.
Yeah.
They just are there not to listen to you, but to say what they want to say. And that's not a conversation you have to have. You're not required to. So just walk away or kick them out. So that's step 1. Number 2, correct lies with the truth. So be bold. If they say you're just in this to make money, you are very much able to say, absolutely not. That's incorrect. You're lying, and call it out. Call it for what it is. You don't have to be polite and, to put it kindly, the things you're saying or accusing me of are not exactly the truth. Just flat out call a lie, So do that. Correct the lies with the truth. Don't be ashamed or insecure about that. Number 3 is to refuse manipulation. When they're trying to manipulate, they're trying to use these tools of division and use their opinions to say that, well, what about this and that and these types of things. Refuse to be manipulated. Say, you know what? You say, and this is what Alma points out, says you say that all these people are unhappy. They're chained down by these rules and all that type stuff. And yet they all say they're very happy. And if you compare them to the people following you, your people are miserable. And so that's oftentimes what I see today, that the people that are saying that the Christian people are so prudish and unhappy and all these problems with them, and you go, man, that's a pot calling the kettle black. Look at the free thinking people you're representing. They look most miserable and worse off. 4 is to bear testimony. There are certain situations where you don't get into logical arguments. You're not proving 2 + 2 = 4. You can invite the Spirit, bear simple testimony, and that is the antidote to whatever's being said to you. So kind of understanding if they're lying, correct it with the truth. If they're manipulating, correct it and say, we're not going to stand for that. Look logically at what you're saying. Doesn't make sense. You're saying these people are unhappy. Clearly they say they're happy. You're manipulating. That's wrong. And then 4 is to bear testimony. 5 is to put them on the defensive. You don't have to just stand there and take it. You don't have to just deflect things. You can accuse them. They're accusing you. You don't have to just defend that. You can accuse them and say, look what you're doing. Look what you're doing to the lives of these people. Look what your brand of religion, you may call it anti-religion, but it's truthfully, you're representing a religion. Look what it's done to these people. Look what it's done to people in the past. Other people have tried this same kind of method, and look how it's turned out for them, right? And so those are things you can do, put them on their heels, put them on the defensive. And I think Alma does that as well. He charges him with some pretty pointed questions. And then number 6 this is a deep one. Know why you know. So this goes into the kind of bearing testimony and stuff. And it's 1 to have a testimony. It's 2 to understand how you got your testimony. Alma kind of lays that out with Korihor when Korihor asks for proof, and Alma kind of says, "You already have proof. What do you mean? And look at all these things around you, and look at this thing, and look at that thing." So Alma lays out a pretty good example, and it ties in with Hebrews 11 verse 1. Let me see. I think I've got that. Talking about faith.
Faith, yeah.
Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It's interesting, substance and evidence. Those are things that are tangible. So many times we think of faith or testimony as a feeling or based on feelings. But here we're talking about substance of things hoped for. We're not talking about the ether of things hoped for. We're not talking about the energy of things hoped for. We're talking about the substance of things hoped for. And we're talking about the evidence of things not seen. And that's fascinating. And I think that's what testimony is about. And Alma gives a great example of how we can build these testimonies to be unshakable by the Nehors or Korihors or the Sherams of the world. And part of that is using reason to an extent. Look at the people around you at church. Their lives aren't perfect, but they generally are happier people than the people of this world you see on the evening news or these reality TV shows. What about the scriptures? There's people in the scriptures, the existence of scriptures to begin with. That should give you some reasoning that there's more to this than just a used car salesman trying to get you into their church pew on Sunday. What about the prophets? When you hear them speak, how do you feel? How does your mind work? Is it different? Is there a tangible difference? I think there is, and I think that is evidence. I think that is substance. What about the experiences you've had in the past? Have you ever felt that you've had a prayer answered? Have you ever seen a miracle or heard of a miracle from someone you trust? And that rolls into the next one, which is the authority figures in your life, your parents, the people you trust most, the people closest to you who care more about you and your well-being than anyone else. What do they say? What is their experience with Christ and God and prayer? And I think these are all evidences. I think these are all substances that we can begin building testimonies on and constantly refine and strengthen and grow to be unshakable against these antichrists that we run across in life. I think it's a good example in chapter 30 of Alma.
Very, very good. The scriptures are full of patterns.
Yep.
Which is a great job outlining that for sure. Think of you were mentioning there the prophets. And in chapter 31, where Alma is praying for the people, and it reminded me of President Nelson and his wish for his 100th birthday coming up. You know, he doesn't want anything of
ties and
socks and things like that, right? But he's asking that everyone seek out the one in their lives, and just thinking about President Nelson and seeing how much love that he has for the people of the world. I mean, you can see it, you can feel it, you can hear it in his voice. And thinking, and this is, my family, we sat down the other night, Monday night, a little short family home meeting there, and we talked about, can each of us follow the prophet in this short little small little challenge that he's given us. And it doesn't have to be, invite them to sit down and listen to the missionaries. His point wasn't specifically about, missionary work, but it could be a wide range of things. Is there a difference that you're having between you and somebody else? Is that the one in your life that you need to reach out to? So I'm hoping that my family can take that challenge, accept that challenge. And so we're including that in our family prayers and in our personal prayers as well. So it just reminded me of that, where Alma was praying so fervently for the people here. And I just imagine President Nelson doing the same, and hopefully we can follow him in that.
Yeah, that was a whole nother thing in chapter 31 about the differences in prayer, right? On the Rameumptom.
Right.
That was, I've always read that kind of, laughing a bit inside, because I was like, man, this is over the top ridiculous. But I mean, I think there's cases like that, and there's dangers with that to avoid being too self-centered and self-focused and all that. So it does,
and self-righteous.
And self-righteous, yeah. Alma does provide a good contrast to that of how we should be centered and goal. And that reminded me, there was a quote I'd found just recently. It's just one of those, internet quotes, social media or whatever. It said, many people reject Jesus because of bad experiences with religious people. But here's the thing. Jesus had bad experiences with religious people too. In fact, they killed him. People will let you down. Jesus won't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I like that.
That's really good.
It came to mind when we were reading chapter 31, with the people in the church. Like, we're so blessed and everyone else is trash.
That's right. That's
does not seem like a church I'd want to be in.
And when you get down to it, that's quite the prayer. It's going up there so everybody could see.
Yeah, and everyone had to say the exact same prayer.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a choice.
Yeah, we're unique because we all do the same thing. I don't know. It's weird. I thought there was something interesting too when they said their prayer, and I don't have the verse on hand, sorry, but when they were saying their prayer there at the Rameumptom, they said like in the direction of heaven. Does that ring a bell? I thought that was interesting because they weren't necessarily praying to God. They were just saying it in the direction of heaven or something like that. And I thought that was interesting. Right off the bat, it's like a performance. It's not having a conversation with God.
It's not sincere at all. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. But I had never noticed before that they didn't even start off like, like praying to God. They were just saying words in the direction of heaven. And I thought that was interesting takeaway this go around too. Yeah.
And I just thought about Alma, as we were talking about this, can you, so he's the president of the church, right? If we were wanting to make a comparison, and I would think it would be so hard to have a positive attitude. And when you're seeing all this nonsense around you and and you're going from town to town to town and trying to clean all of this nonsense up. And then you go back and find that there's even more nonsense, and what you thought was cleaned up, now it's crept back in. But he never gave up. He still is. He reminded me of all of our modern day prophets. They always had an optimistic view, right? And they always said that in their hearts they're optimistic, even though they see all this nonsense and sin and chaos around them. And it just gave me a better, I guess is the right word, appreciation for the weight upon a president of the church and how difficult it must be to remain positive, and optimistic. And my heart goes out to Alma because he's seeing this nonsense around him over and over and over again. And yet, he's, what? Back at it. It's another day. Here we go again, and just zeal that he had.
Yeah, I think one of the things that helps them stay positive is that they do see a big picture. I think it helps us as well, remembering the eternal perspective on things. And if we watch a lot of news, we're probably going to have a pretty negative outlook on things, because the news they lead with the negative.
Mm-hmm.
And what's wrong with everything. You actually have to search pretty good bit for the positive out there, but it's mainly because it's shared the least amount. But there's tons of good out there, in the world, for sure.
If you can't see the good, be the good.
There you go. I like that. I think we'll end it right there.
I'm gonna make a t-shirt.
Yeah. If you can't see the good, be the good. There you go.
Keep on striving.
Until next time, y'all keep on striving.
From the side.
Come on.